Also, the facility manager or the individual in charge of the cleaners, they have other responsibilities. Like we mentioned, maintenance of maybe items in your building. If you're a manufacturer, you've got equipment that might break down and you have to repair that, or you have a lot of scheduled maintenance that's in your software that you've scheduled throughout the year that comes up, and maybe it's the day that you're going to replace all of your HVAC air filters that day, and you got to push that back a week because your cleaning person just got the flu or worse. And so those are challenges that come up. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cleaning Indy Podcast, brought to you by American Facility Care. I'm your host, Tom Moore, co-founder of American Facility Care, and we like to talk about all things facility and building related. Are you a facilities director or property manager or even the point person in charge of your building? Then this podcast is for you. Today, we're going to talk about the pros and cons of in-house cleaners versus outsourcing to a professional cleaning company. First of all, let's look at the pros of going in-house. So if you already have an in-house cleaner, there are some things that are great about that scenario. First of all, you know, and probably you like and you trust them as well. You know, like, and trust them better than you would someone who maybe works for another company that you would bring in. You would outsource and bring them in. You wouldn't know them quite yet, at least very well at the beginning. You would eventually get to know them, but that's a pro. You already know them, you like them, and you trust them. You know who they are. Maybe they bring in some sort of atmosphere to the workplace, something that you like about them. You know the type of worker they are. Their attendance habits, that's a big one. Whether they're late or they're on time. They're already integrated into your company. Your HR, definitely your HR if they're in your company, already has all the documents and tax forms filled out for them. All the files are set up through payroll. You have a folder probably on them for how good they are, any types of work-related items that you've gone through. You have that together already. Maybe they get along well with others. That's something that's a big one. You want your cleaning crew, whether it's in-house or outsourced, you want them to get along well with other people, your whole office or workplace. And then maybe a great pro, and probably one of the greatest, I would say, is that perhaps they are just fantastic cleaners. That's a big deal in today's day and age, being a good cleaner. Maybe they have cleaning background that they brought with them to your company. Perhaps they worked for an actual outsourced cleaning company and they brought in techniques, procedures, they've been properly trained, and you enjoy the benefits of that in your company. And there's a lot going for you having them there. Those are all great things, and I wish you well. If that is who you have now and it's working out for you, then that's it, friends. You have everything that you need. And you don't need to outsource if that's where you are and everything's going well for you. Now, along those lines, even if they are a great cleaner and they get along well with your person, the rest of the persons in your building, the rest of the people, what am I talking about? The rest of your people, there are some cons, or at least some things to think about when you're thinking about retaining them or hiring additional cleaners. We'll call them cons here, and they might not be that big of a con, but maybe for the person who's in charge of hiring, the person in charge of actually training the cleaning crew. A lot of times those people are facility managers or directors, some sort of manager that has other roles attached to their title. A lot of times facility managers, they oversee the entire facility, maintenance of the physical building. Sometimes if there's machinery inside the building, they're in charge of maintaining that machinery, and they have a lot on their plate. One of the cons or challenges, we'll say, is the labor market. It's 2023, beginning of 2023, and the labor market has had its ups and downs in the last few years. I would say particularly the year 2022 was super challenging. I mean, 2020 and 2021, of course, there's no comparison, but even last year and into this year, it's been a challenging labor market for that type of position, for cleaning people. There are a lot of competitors who are paying higher and higher wages that are grabbing those types of workers into their workforce. Even Fast food places are paying $15, $16 an hour if you're in this area of central Indiana. And really just across the board, wages have gone up, which is a good thing, but also can be challenging if you're on a budget. If you have a budget for your facility and you're constantly going back to your bosses, you're going back to them and you're asking for additional pay to be able to support the increase in cost for labor. So that's a challenge. It really is a challenge. Also, scheduling around their personal days or sick days or vacation days is extremely hard. They are somebody who does a lot. The cleaning person in your company, they fulfill a vital role. They provide a lot of manpower that you yourself, even though you're capable, and many, if not most or all people in your building are capable of doing the cleaning, it's just a lot of work. It's a lot of extra work that, let's face it, your cleaning person calls in sick. Is this scenario familiar? And whose plate does that fall on? Who's responsible for the cleaning to make sure it's actually getting done? It's usually the facility manager or director or manager of the building. And so that's a lot that falls onto their plate. And yes, it's possible to fulfill that, but that just pulls people in many directions. And who's that going to frustrate? That's going to frustrate your coworkers. And then they're going to raise that up to your boss. You're going to eventually, it's going to come back to you and you're going to hear about that. So it's a challenge scheduling around your cleaning person, their personal days. And let's face it, I mean, a personal day is a personal day. They can just take it whenever they want. And that's how it works. Vacations are more planned, and so you can more prepare, hopefully, for those. But a sick day is a sick day. You know, when they call in, it's going to throw people's schedule off in your building, and that's a challenge. Okay, when they're gone, everyone else has to jump in and take on more responsibilities. Also, the facility manager or the individual in charge of the cleaners, they have other responsibilities. Like we mentioned, maintenance of maybe items in your building. If you're a manufacturer, you've got equipment that might break down and you have to repair that, or you have a lot of scheduled maintenance that's in your software that you've scheduled throughout the year that comes up, and maybe it's the day that you're going to replace all of your HVAC air filters that day, and you got to push that back a week because your cleaning person just got the flu or worse. And so those are challenges that come up. All right. Specifically, what are some of the challenges that come up? Well, it's one thing to do the cleaning and get that done throughout the day, but there are other things that come up, such as restocking of paper products in the bathroom, or you go in and for like a week, have you ever experienced this, where your trash can is just overflowing? There's just trash, it seems like, spilling out everywhere. And yes, people can pick it up and put it in, but again, that takes them from their normal tasks of what they were hired to do. So restrooms are a big thing. Also, the kitchen, the break room, that's another big area that needs to be cleaned up. All the crumbs and all the just details, the cleaning inside and outside of the microwaves and the fridges, sanitizing high touch points throughout the building. Dusting has to happen at least weekly in buildings. And so there's a lot on the plate that the cleaner actually provides that would fall onto the plate of the facility manager or the manager in charge of the building. It falls on their shoulders when they're gone. All right, so the other thing is the timing of it could be an issue. Like, how many times do you have VIPs? This is something you would know the answer of for your specific building. How many times do VIPs come in to your building on a weekly basis? And even if it's something that's planned, again, sickness can't be planned. So maybe 3 weeks from now, we're going to have a VIP. Hey, you go to your staff, you're well prepared, and you go to them and you're reminding them, hey, we need everybody here. We need all hands on deck 3 weeks from today. And maybe you have those meetings and they're well aware of that. But again, no one can really, predict a virus coming into their house and not taking out, unfortunately, your cleaning person. And so that sets you back. Maybe you have more than one cleaning person and you're able to spread it out. So that would be a pro. A pro would be having a crew of people in your facility, and then it falls on their shoulders to split up the amount of work. And just on that point, a cleaning company, that's all they do. They are able to bring in extra personnel. A lot of times they have standby cleaners who are just on a retainer every month, and they just are able to come in and pick up the slack and not even really upset the workflow of their coworkers. So that's a benefit. Yeah, so let's go ahead and get into that. What are the pros the actual good things that come from outsourcing to a professional cleaning company for you. Well, number one, I have here in my notes, you get your time and your sanity back. That's a big part of your health and your well-being as an individual who really, you do have a lot that you oversee in your facility. Usually, let's be honest, and it's not a bad thing, but a lot of times cleaning is something that, man, when it's going so well, you tend to forget about it, or you tend to push it down on your list because there's other things that are constantly pushing your list to the top of your list. There's constantly things that are driving themselves up. You know, the old saying, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And so there's a lot of squeaky wheels popping up. I remember when I was a facility manager, I would carry, this was before iPhones, and about the time BlackBerries and the Trio 650, what a great device that was. But before the Trio, I had a notepad and a little pencil or pen stuck into the metal ring there. And I remember just walking down the hallways, and it was a school. There would be tons of teachers that would just stop you on the way. And it was comical. They realized what was happening because, man, I was stopping in the hallway and people constantly coming up to me and adding things to my list. And it got to the point where we developed a system, and you no doubt have systems. So that was my earlier days, but we had a system of work orders that finally kicked in, and that was a great stress relief from me. But as the facility director at the time, cleaning, when it was going well, it wasn't on the top of my list. Of course, checking it, doing the weekly things that you do with that comes with the job, and you do those things. But then there's other things that pop up to the top of the list. So a pro could be the labor market. You don't have to worry about your next hire. And again, this is a difficult position to hire. We'll do a podcast later about our hiring system, but we have a beautiful system, and it took us, 8 years to get there. But now we have a great hiring system. Nothing's perfect. I wish it were, but it's challenging still, but yet it's a great system with funnels and different automations that we have set up in place. And maybe you have those things as well. Maybe you have a great HR workflow that helps you hire the cleaners that you need, and that's fantastic. But you no longer have to worry about the ups and downs of hiring. That's our job now when you outsource. Also, your coworkers are happy because they no longer have to chip in when the cleaner is gone. And then in turn, they're not going to your boss. They're not escalating things, work tickets, different important items that are missing in the restrooms and the break rooms. They're not escalating that to your bosses. And again, less pressure on you. Your bosses are happy because the building, when you've outsourced it, they know it's getting done. And it's going to be ready tomorrow when that VIP comes your way to your facility. It's going to be there no matter if the regular cleaner is sick or not. They're going to have their floater cleaner show up. And again, with a floater cleaner, a lot of times they are trained. We have people who are cross-trained. And again, we have the same system of cleaning, the same training that we've done that applies to each of our buildings. And so, for instance, in the restroom, we have what's called a hygienic way of cleaning, and cleaning in such a way that minimizes and gets rid of all bacteria and germs in the restrooms. And so they're all cleaned, cross-trained. The cleaners are cross-trained on that way of cleaning. And it makes it easier for the person filling in. They've already been there. Maybe during the initial phase of taking on your cleaning company, we have a few extra people there that week, or we bring them in pretty quickly so that they're familiar with the building as well. And so they don't bother you, the manager or facility director, when they're showing up to replace somebody. And if they're not familiar, we as the owner are able to come in and work with them. All right, so the business of hiring and training falls on us. So your building is cleaned by people who have gone through proper training. That's a big one. There is training involved. Now, how much do you have to train somebody to empty trash? How much do you have to train somebody to dust? There are parts in the cleaning world that are easier and more straightforward than others. But again, you get into the restrooms, you get into the places where your workers are touching things, doors, microwaves, food spilling. How is that being handled? There's something called microfilm, and that is something that can get on top of any type of horizontal surface, your desktops, your tables, the countertops in your break room, the microwave glass thing that spins around the carousel in the microwave. All of these surfaces, doorknobs, can have what's called biofilm, and we'll talk about that later in another episode. So those are things that we're trained to deal with. And so there's a lot of training that goes into the proper way, we call it the hygienic way of cleaning. And when your folks are filling in, a lot of times they don't think of hygiene as much. They think, okay, what's the task here? Okay, trash needs emptied. Great. Emptied the trash. Okay, I just need to vacuum a little bit around this area, get some of these paper holes up off the floor. And so that's something that's on their mind, not necessarily the deeper side of cleaning, which is the important side, the hygienic way of cleaning. All right, so the other thing here is there are actual protocols and standardizations for cleaning. You're familiar, no doubt, with OSHA and their requirements for like the janitor's closet. You can't have a mop in the mop bucket. We've seen this over and over. So we train our people it's supposed to hang up off of the floor or off of the mop bucket. And so those are things that we do. Also, the CDC, of course, during COVID had so many protocols and they were updating and changing them almost monthly. We keep up with all of those government and state protocols. They're good protocols as well that we implement anyway. Then there's organizations in the cleaning industry that we keep up on. The ISSA, a great training and information source, also GBAC, the Global Bi-Risk Advisory Council. And so we're actually certified with that for the specific type of cleaning that we talked about with the biofilm and all of that. So these are things that we can train our folks on. We're also trained in cleaning operating rooms. And there's a lot of training that you go through. It's actually a credit for a nursing master's degree is what our folks go through when they're done with the hours and hours of training and quiz, and actually a test, not a quiz, but it's like a 20-question test at the end. And so I'm trained in that, and we train everyone else in that. And so what a great pro that is to know that your cleaning company has all these training certifications, and they're ready to take on not just your trash and your dusting and your vacuuming, but they're ready to take on the germs in your building that are making your own folks sick, and they're ready to eliminate that for you. So the professional cleaning company, lastly, also has a great inspection system to ensure that you're getting what you're paying for. We have a scope of work, and we go through with each of our new clients the scope of work, and we want to make sure that everything that they want done, we spell that out. It's written out line by line, and then the frequency. And so that can be worked on and changed at any time if there needs to be updates to that. But it's all spelled out and written out. And guess what? Our software turns that into a checklist that they have on their app. And we all use the same app to clock in and clock out, and it has all the information that they need. Instructions if there's alarms and lights, and how to lock up and shut down, turn off all the proper lights, set the alarm. And then there's a section for a checklist that they go through, and everything that we've agreed on to do is there. And then when we come in and follow up with the inspection, it's all there, and we can give a mark as to how well, or if it was done and how well, and if there's any room for improvement. So a good inspection system is necessary. All right, if you'd like to learn more, visit our website at cleaningindy.com. Cleaningindy.com. And hey, don't forget to rate us wherever you're listening to this podcast, whether it's Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you are. YouTube, give us a subscribe and a thumbs up. Hey, and we'll see you next time.